What part of this matters? That's where I want to start. What part of this actually do you think at the end of the day is important, big picture for ESPN and kind of the industry?
I think that it matters because it definitively tells you like where ESPN's priorities lie. And like we could have figured that out. We could have pieced together, a nice piece, connecting the dots. But like firing Zach Lowe, who is unanimously considered the best basketball writer in America, unanimously considered the best basketball podcaster. If he doesn't have a place at ESPN, cost cutting or not, like I think that tells you. And I think that, the reality is as much as I think we both obviously love Zach Lowe and as much as everybody who we are probably connected with in the basketball world loves Zach Lowe. The reality is he does not fit what ESPN is trying to do. And the biggest thing to me that stands out about how he doesn't fit into that is Zach is not somebody who pushes stories forward. Zach is not somebody who drives a news cycle by saying, I think the Lakers should trade Anthony Davis, or I think that Joel Embiid's time in Philadelphia is coming to an end. Zach doesn't do that. Zach gives you smart analysis. Zach gives you, good podcasts. And for whatever reason, ESPN's decided that's not where they want to monetize, or at least they haven't figured out that's where they can monetize. I think, Bill Simmons, when he addressed it on his podcast, was right. It's all about, YouTube clips and how can we get this 30-second clip of Kendrick Perkins, saying some outrageous thing. So I think it just kind of crystallizes everything we probably already thought about ESPN when it comes to this type of coverage.
Yeah. I mean, to elaborate on what I meant about the final domino, I mean, when Woj got to ESPN, they got rid of True Hoop, which was kind of a nerdy basketball thing, but they did a lot with ESPN, the magazine, in terms of long form. They had a really, really smart podcast network and entertaining podcast network for Get Smart. And all of that kind of fell by the wayside just over time. More and more people have left and been replaced by, some combination of newsbreakers and former athletes. And there's nothing, I don't have an issue with any of their talent, really. I mean, I know that people, I don't love that Stephen A. and Wilbon ended up being kind of like the go-tos on the studio show. I just think you're asking for a level of, a certain type of content if you're putting not only one but both of them on a show like that. But other than that, I mean, I don't take massive issue with any of the individuals. It's just what they've prioritized. And I've gotten so I had a tweet go, viral sounds ridiculous, but like people commented and had a lot to say when I suggested that he go independent. And like, one, that's easy for me to say. I wasn't literally giving instructions to Zach Lowe, but I think more insiders could like do better than maybe even they think if they tried it, and he's probably the best. He's not quite an insider, but he does break some news in nugget form throughout his writing and podcasting, and people pay for stuff like that more than we think. But I got a lot of pushback that he makes maybe even more like than what was reported, like 1.5 to 2 million, even more than just, barely scratching 7 figures. So that probably played a pretty significant role here. I also, I wrote some names on the NFL side in the column that I wrote and heard that maybe those people really do make significantly less than Zach, and so, okay, there's finances involved there, but I don't know. I like it. It's very granular, but my biggest takeaway on this was another reminder that ESPN not only, I don't know if they can or can't, they're not interested in monetizing podcasts. They don't want to do that. They never have, and I don't think that they ever will unless it happens to be something that Peyton Manning's company brings to their table with the Omaha Productions partnership, where people like Mina Kimes and Kevin Clark on the NFL side are doing podcasts. If it's not that, I don't think that they have any sort of lane to make money off of those, despite what countless other companies are proving is possible. And I think what Zach Lowe will prove is possible the minute he signs wherever he ends up going, which we can hit on in a moment. He's going to make a lot of money for his company with that podcast. ESPN just bailed on that.
Yeah. And that's, ESPN outsources the sales of its podcasts, I know, to Good Karma Brands, which is like a conglomerate of local radio stations.
Yeah.
And so that to me, I mean, right? Doesn't that kind of just follow the money? Like if ESPN cared about podcasts and if they were trying to monetize podcasts, they'd be doing it themselves. They wouldn't be outsourcing it. And so I think that obviously we're seeing more and more of that. And yeah, I mean, we've seen less podcasts from them. We do not see that emphasis on podcasts. If they cared about podcasts, Dan Le Batard would have been a lot more valuable to them than they decided he was. They wouldn't have let him go in the fashion that they did. So I don't know how you could dispute that, but yeah, that's the thing with Zach is like, he was really good at writing. He was really good at podcasts. He was good enough at TV. I don't think he was bad at TV, but I don't think he was as good as, say, like Brian Windhorst is in terms of translating to TV. And so I think that, the reality at ESPN is that's what they care about most. And like I said, being able to push, not only, I don't even want to say push stories forward, because I think it's almost like create stories, create narratives and create storylines. And you say something on Get Up, and then they can talk about it on First Take, and then they can talk about it throughout the day on their programming. And Zach is just that's not the way Zach's built.
Yeah, I just, conversation, bigger picture, probably for a different day that we will have a different day. But that type of stuff just doesn't seem like what I would be focusing on if I was trying to launch a subscription service at some point next year that has to actively acquire an audience. That's stuff that is fun when the TV's just on, I just, it's strange to me how they think that that's going to acquire people who not only want to watch, but pay outside of watching games. And maybe it is just watching games, but they're still going to air all this other stuff. They're still going to have a website. They're still going to have some kind of podcast network and studio shows and things like that. It's just, what is that stuff even going to be? I mean, it can't just be games. Otherwise, the business is going to look even different, more different than it does now. But we shall see.